5 and what will happen in week 6. Well, I hope in week 5 we didn't get lost, frankly, in technical, statistical, and mathematical techniques and formulas that most of you, and for most of my career, have not run across since I was in graduate school, let's be honest. So anyway, I hope we didn't get lost there, and I hope that the other video I did earlier in the week simplified things and helped us try to focus on the key themes that we're trying to get at when we talk about impact, as opposed to getting lost in statistics and other stuff that you could spend a whole course on, and whole courses are designed around. Okay? But if we look a little bit, yes, at the Harlem Children's Zone case study, there were 3 big takeaways that I hope you got out of there. The first is the real importance to make sure that if your organization has a goal, that you really do think about your programs and how they actually help your organization attain that goal. Okay? So essentially, your programs really ought to fit into your logic model as to what it is your mission, and then how do you think you can achieve that mission and maximize it. And so what programs should you be running, and services should you be providing, or activities you should be doing that will actually logically lead to an outcome that is the maximization of your mission. Okay? And what I thought was interesting, right, was that in the case study, about halfway through, they talk about how Canada dropped 3 really successful programs that really didn't relate to the goals of the Harlem Children's Zone, as that became the organization's real mission. That is to maximize the outcomes of children and families in the 24 square block area that was the Harlem Children's Zone. These programs operated outside of that zone, and also focused on populations that were really not children focused. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing was the difficulty of moving from a program-centered organization to an organization-centered organization. And what I mean by that is, most of our organizations are set up to support the programs that we operate, right? And this is the way the Reedland Center originally operated, and in the early days of the Harlem Children's Zone, it's how the Harlem Children's Zone operated, right? Canada went to programs, asked the program directors, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And all the focus was on trying to make those programs as successful as they could be, as defined by the program directors, right? But you saw, as the case study went on, and as the Harlem Children's Zone's mission became more defined and more focused on serving children and their families within that 24 square block area, and doing everything you can in order to help those kids become more successful academically and ultimately on to successful college careers. The focus switched from the organization serving the programs to the programs serving that organizational goal, to get all the kids successful in school academically and moving on up the educational ladder to college. Okay? And so the problem came when the directors realized that no, they weren't really driving the boat anymore. The organization wasn't supporting their programs and my program and my objectives. No, the organization was really asking the programs to subordinate their former priorities to the priorities of the organization and its effort to maximize mission as the organization defined it. And then finally, this whole notion that if you're going to ask donors for big bucks, you really have to show them the money. That's kind of ironic, right? You're asking for bucks, you got to show them the money. Okay, but you have to, as one of our other books says, right? Treat donors as investors. They want to see the ROI on what they are giving. And if you're asking for millions and millions of dollars, and you're getting millions and millions of dollars from different funders, then you better be ready to show them the outcomes and the output of the investments, on the investments that they're making in your organization. And I think that the one thing that Canada has done is that he didn't shy away from raising the bar. He said, I'm going to get all these kids in this neighborhood to move forward together. And we're going to do that by having all these interlocking programs serving these same kids and families. And we're really going to use a fairly robust academic achievement test regularly, routinely, to see if our programs are effectively moving these kids forward, and or to show you, so we can improve them, and to show you that your money is being well spent. And I think that that's kind of a mindset that we don't always adhere to in the nonprofit sector. And I'll actually go back to when I was teaching. It always seemed like there were 101 reasons why teachers could not be successful. And I'll just throw a couple out here. Well, I couldn't do everything for every child in my class because, well, teachers just can't reach every kid. There'll be some kids that we just don't click with and we just can't reach them. The home problem of this kid just makes it so I can't reach them. I have just too many kids in my class to teach, so I can't reach another group of kids. And some of them just have learning disabilities, and I can't do that. And so before you knew it, as a teacher, you had rationalized why you hadn't reached half the kids in your class. And I think that nonprofits sometimes kind of fall into that mentality as well, because we do take on daunting challenges. We do try to serve those that the government and the for-profit marketplace have failed to serve properly. Hence, right, the theory about why nonprofits exist. But we use the difficulty of the task sometimes as an excuse for why we don't solve the problem. Now, I know that that's going to get all sorts of feedback and all sorts of flack thrown in my face. But, Canada just didn't accept that as a reason why he couldn't reach everybody. And he just set his sights high, and he was audacious in that regard. And I think that audacity is in short supply sometimes within the nonprofit sector. I don't know. That's just an old fart talking, I guess. Okay, so beyond the Harlem Children's Zone, I want to make sure that this past week and all the statistical stuff, we didn't lose, with all that stuff going on, we didn't lose sight of the importance of the evaluation hierarchy and how each of the assignments and pieces that we're putting together really have to logically line up. Okay? And I thought that very quickly, I know I'm already at 10 minutes, that I could talk a little bit about the way they line up using this graduate program that you're in as an example of how they do all line up. So, in terms of need, originally the college looked around and it said, gee, nonprofits are becoming more difficult to run, they're becoming more complex, and it's really critical to our society that they function well because they are beginning to be the service deliverers of more and more essential public goods. Therefore, the need out there is for more and better leaders of nonprofit organizations. Okay, so that was the definition of the need. And so then we thought about, well, program theory. Duh. Well, how can we get more competent professional leaders of nonprofits? Well, maybe what we do is create a graduate program in nonprofit management and fundraising studies. And then if we think about that, so if we have more people trained well in the things they need to know in order to be efficient leaders of the nonprofit sector, maybe we'll end up with better run nonprofits, more public goods being provided to society, hence more benefits to society as a whole. Okay, sounds pretty logical as a program theory. And then, well, we got a little bit more specific because we had a logic model. And we said, okay, well, let's see, what could be the specific parts of a model, an operational model, that will get us the outcome? So we said, well, let's see, we'll have all these courses that students can choose from. We'll put them through a 12-course, 36-credit management and or fundraising program, and those courses will cover XYZ that we think is needed in order to be a good nonprofit leader. And by the time they come out, when students come out at the end, they'll have these skills, they'll get jobs, they'll do well, they'll make their nonprofits more efficient, effective, and economical. These nonprofits will be better able to maximize their mission, and the public will benefit by having better operating nonprofits that produce more public good. Okay, that's kind of the logic model. Okay, and so then we think about, okay, implementation evaluation. And what we then do is say, okay, professors, you people who are designing and teaching these courses, are you actually doing in the classroom what we hoped you would do in the logic model? That is, are you actually teaching students? Does the coursework that you're actually teaching and the methodology you're using to teach that material actually reflective of the intent of the program model, right? Implementation evaluation is essentially evaluating whether the program is being implemented as intended. And so, frankly, there are all sorts of internal evaluation and monitoring of professors and the course curriculums to see if in fact they're matching what we had intended. Okay, so we do that internally all the time, these implementation evaluations. But now we come to the last part, right, which is impact. And this is the most important part, right, because we want to see if in fact we are impacting the need that was identified way back at the beginning. Are we actually getting more nonprofit leaders who can effectively lead their organizations, maximize mission, and provide better public goods to the public? Well, the first part of the impact study we can do pretty good, right? We can measure output. That is, how many students are actually going through the program, how many of them are completing the 12 courses, how many of them are getting degrees, and maybe some measure of quality. What is their grade point average, right? Assuming that we don't have total grade inflation and not everybody gets A's, which they don't, Maybe the grade point average reflects how well we're doing in terms of actually teaching students and turning out, I don't mean to use that negatively, but producing better nonprofit leaders, right? Managers, fundraisers, etc. Okay? But there's a second part to impact, and that's what we got stuck on this week, I think, a little bit, or got lost in a little bit this week, when you try to actually measure outcomes. Not output, but outcomes. And outcomes then would say, after the graduates, students in the program actually graduate, do they actually get leadership jobs? Do they actually do a better job? Are they helping their organizations maximize mission? Are those organizations providing more and better public goods efficiently, effectively, economically? Well, honestly, we don't have a tool for doing that. We have anecdotals, but we don't have, randomized evaluation, and maybe we're not so sure we have quasi-experimental designs either. Okay? But I hope through talking about the program and your experience in it and your understanding of it, you are getting an understanding here of how it all has to logically flow from the need, program theory, logic model, implementation, outcome. Okay? And this week, going into week 6, I was very glad to see that we were not scheduled to read chapter 10, because if we were, I was going to make that optional. That really goes into a lot of statistical stuff that just is not necessary and will just divert us and distract us. But this week we are going to talk about that last type of evaluation, the top of the hierarchy, the efficiency evaluation. And this is essentially cost-benefit analysis. And so there's a nice chapter in Rossi, and there are 2 more chapters in, I'm going to forget the name, sorry, in that other book about treating funders as investors. So I think that's the end of my notes, and oh my God, it's 18 minutes. But just one last thing, we do have phone calls this week on Wednesday. You can sign up in the in Canvas. Andy, I sent you an announcement, but I had to change a time. 11 o'clock on Wednesday is not available. I have another phone call I have to take at that time. So sign up for a different time. I added 9:30 if that works for you or anybody else. So I look forward to talking with you this week about how the course is going for you and how you're doing on your final papers and how your overall evaluation design is working. I know you had an assignment today. A couple of you asked for extensions. I know some of you are redoing some old assignments. So I actually have blocked out some time tomorrow afternoon when my wife is cooking so to look at your assignment. So I hope I do that tomorrow afternoon. Okay? Finito. Be well, and call anytime if you want, other than Wednesday as well. Okay? Thanks. Bye-bye.